Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Hajimari no Kiseki. Last episode, we saw Rain's trip to Calvard, how it was in the future. In this episode, we're gonna see the girls' ordinary school life beyond the Genesis. So let's get started. April 1208, Septian calendar. Aramis High School, an extremely prestigious school in Calvard's capital, named for the great artist Aramis, who had been pivotal in the Calvardian Revolution 100 years ago. Its founding goal was to nurture the great young minds who would one day lead to a new nation into the future. The school was founded on greatly values traditional Calvard culture, but likewise values of consideration of different beliefs and ways of life. Aramis is a free-spirited school, one which respects the independence of its students and thus attracts applicants from all across Sumeria. Many call it a shining example of Calvard's ideals, crystallized in the form of one historical academic institution. Each spring, the much-anticipated Aramis Liberal Arts Festival is held to welcome new students shortly after, on the day of 1208. Still draped in the morning light, a great crowd of students scurried across the picturesque school courtyard. Yet even among those who are bright youths, one stood out. A young woman with a ribbon tied up in her long violet hair. Is that an order, Jared? Now 17 years old, she had grown to a beautiful feminine physique. Despite her womanly charge, she maintained a cute, youthful face, fascinating combination drew her eyes towards her. Is there anything else you need help with, Jared? No? Okay. Sorry, guys. If I'd known that my brother was doing stuff, I would have, helped him. Oh well. Renne Bright. So this is older Renne. An exchange student from Liberal's esteemed Janus Royal Academy. Enrolling for the spring semester, she attends Aramis High School as a second-year student. Noted as a prodigy from her youth, even holding numerous degrees and PhDs, it was obvious she wasn't intended to merely attain a high school level education. In truth, she simply wanted a cover that would allow her to freely explore the Republic, perhaps also engage in some secret training. During her time at Janus Royal Academy, she had ascertained that a front of a student was perfect for such a task. They naturally faced some restrictions, but on the whole, the world is rather kind to students. Thus, with this goal in mind, Renne had resolved to stand out as little as possible in her time as a student at Aramis. She held that she could act graceful yet humble, and yet, a fine morning, Miss Bright. Kya, it's Renne Bright in the flesh. Hey, took over there. That girl's she's so hot, not to mention she's insanely smart. Whoa, is Renne getting filled out? Each student she had passed a greeting to give or had something to say, she was looked upon with both envy and admiration alike. She was stunning, of course. She became more of a celebrity after a teacher leaked that she managed to score perfect scores on her entrance exams. All this fame merely 1 month after coming to Aramis. Regardless of what actually meant by it, Renne took all of those comments as a shower of praise, though of course many of them were not so well intentioned. Not only she was an exchange student, but she was one who attained such popularity in less than a month. Naturally, there would be a number of students who would look upon her jealousy and distaste. Even on this fine April morning, there were those who stayed away from her, watching her from the shadows as she exchanged greetings with the other students, spewing complaints from slander about the young woman. Renne had no clubs or such activities to be going to. Thus, after the day's classes had ended, she took her time tidying up her bag and rising from her seat. Ah, Renne Bright, would you mind if we chatted for a bit? There alongside his entourage of lackeys, a young man called out to Renne. It's noble bastards. I've seen this too much in anime. Oh, not particularly busy. What do you like to discuss, Griffin? As she grown out, Ren chose to likewise demonstrate that her heart had become that of a young woman by taking extra care only to refer herself in the first person. Of course, this was part of her graceful yet humble manner. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner, care to have dinner with me. In order to strengthen our friendship, of course, I've already reserved us a table at a fine restaurant. This young man was Ronald Griffin, and he adorned himself with a polite and gentlemanly smile as he extended the invitation towards Ren. There were many boys at the school who desired nothing more than a date with Ren, yet each time she would refuse, coming up with an excuse in order to be polite. This time was no exception. I'm terribly sorry, Griffin, but I've already made plans for tonight. Perhaps we can meet to chat over some tea at a later date. Normally, the boy will understand and give up at this point. However, it seemed like this time was an exception. Yes, that's fine. I see you're not truly in a rush. Truly, there's an important matter I'd like to discuss with you. How about if we go right now? Reno had been lying if she said she wasn't intrigued by Ronald's suspicious smile. Important matter. It's a shame, but I do have prior obligations tonight. I can't go out for dinner. Though I have a bit of time right now, can we talk about it here? I see. That really is a shame. Those words only carried disappointment. Frustration was written over Ronald's face. It was clear he hadn't planned for things to go like this. Though in an instant, he once again hid his frustration, returned to his polite smile, and continuing. Well, that's fine. It seems like everyone who this does involve has already left. He looked around as he said this. Indeed, the only people who remain in the classroom were Ren, Ronald, and his entourage. Oh, you do not want to mess with her. Do not mess with the Angel of Slaughter. All the other students are already heading home or heading to their clubs. Perhaps they left earlier than usual, not wanting to get involved with whatever Ronald was scheming. Ronald took one more step towards Ren before speaking once more. Right? You're an exchange student all the way from Liberal. From what I've heard, you coming to Calvard has nothing to do with your family's circumstances, or moving, or anything else of the sort. You've come purely to study at Aramis. Truly, I admire your craving for knowledge, that intellectual spirit. This one became a bit dramatic, Ronald would continue. However, I'm worried for your well-being, sweet bright. Surely living all alone in a foreign country is a frightening experience. You've had no one yet to rely on, yet surely you have to go through all sorts of hardships on your own. Therefore, I begun to think perhaps you need a benefactor, a guardian even. Hearing Ronald's proclamation, Renne narrowed her eye. I see. So wish you invite me into your little clique. Ronald beamed. His father was a member of the Republican Congress, thus Ronald himself also held some influence. Using that influence, Ronald built up a small faction of his own, and now become the primary candidate for the student council election was held in a few weeks. Sure, if he could bring Ren, the most popular girl in school, into his faction, then his victory would all be assured. Trust me, Bright, this is a prime opportunity for you as well. Come under my wing and the rest of the school life will be a breeze. Sorry, drinking water. This is hurting my throat. Given that you're an exchange student, your position at your school would differ greatly depending on whether or not you have some protection. Ren couldn't help but think that this was just a prime opportunity. If she entered a well-positioned group, gathering info from within the school would be a much easier task. Not to mention that Ronald's father was a congressman. If she could make such a connection, it would be a much easier time operating in general. Ronald, without even knowing Ren's true motives, had granted her an almost perfectly appealing offer. Ren returned Ronald's polite smile and said in a light voice, My apologies, I have no interest in such an offer. She mused bluntly. Ronald's eyebrows switched along with a smile. His entire entourage also seemed upset. Clearly, this wasn't the answer they anticipated. Just a moment, Bright. Think about it. Surely, as someone smart as you should realize just how meritorious such an offer is. Are you okay with letting it slip away? You should surely come to regret it. Ronald's tone became more harsher. His entourage, which had merely standing back calmly up to now, slowly came forward to intimidate Ren. Yet, in the face of this, Ren remained calm as ever. It's certainly an appealing offer. In fact, I'd be happy to help someone win the election. Well, that be on the sole condition that I'm the one helping isn't you. The hell did you just say? Suddenly provoked, Ronald's voice was filled with rage, yet Ren reflected his anger with her calm expression. Come now, don't you want to know my reason, Griffin? I know it was just you who was just saying all that filth about me this morning. It was you and your lackeys all behind my back. Although don't think I just noticed today, you and your little friends have always regurgitating such drivel ever since before the Liberal Arts Festival. Ronald's group were all flustered by this accusation. Ren took to her failure to respond as a sign of recognition of the truth and continued speaking. Perhaps what you're trying here isn't wrong. I know what I've been standing out a bit too much recently, and I have to avoid myself. I think that's a brilliant strategy to try and turn the biggest threat to your faction into your ally. But such a strategy will never work if that threat notice the hostility towards them. Therefore, if I were to team with such unskilled people who make such an elementary mistake, I'm sure to grow bored. Apparently, said a sigh and a shrug. But Ronald was quivering with anger. Well then, everyone, I hope you have a good evening. Ronald continued frankly to think of a retort, simply ignored him and his friends, hastily exiting the classroom past him. Mom won't stop using Agate to test everything she can think of. He was completely exhausted this time. Caught a great deal thanks to his sacrifice, but still, I'm guessing Ren's talking to Tia. I'm glad to hear that the Auntie Erica's as energetic as ever. At night, Ren alone in her dorm room, yet she was entirely wrapped in her conversation with Tita. Older Tita and Ren. But still, though, that's as far as your stories with him ever go. I'd love if you two would start acting a bit more like a proper hopeless couple. Like my dear brother and sister, fucking Joshua and Estelle. What a hopeless couple they are. Well, we're still, next week you promised to go out with me. I'm happy to hear that. I'm looking forward to you becoming a proper adult. Ren, could you not? While Ren had begun studying abroad in Calvard, Tita had graduated from Doors and returning to her borough. Two friends were unfortunately in different positions. Both feeling lonely without the other, decided to chat like this at least once a week. Become a fun event to look forward to for the both of them, where they could talk about their new lives in different places and the fruits of their own research and investigations. And about that trouble between the Epstein Foundation and Vern, it seems that soon they may have a lawsuit on their hands. I really hope things don't come to that. Both friends, though separated by many ards, furrowed their brows in unison. Recently, the two had no shortage of troubles thanks to Calvard's very own Vern Company. Vern Company, the Rhineford Corporation, ZCF, and Epstein. Last year, after the situation around Crossville's re-independence calmed down and the dust had settled, Professor Eric, a representative of ZCF, had invited the Vern Company to join the new Western Zamirian Technology Federation. So this was the federation they were talking about during the orbital testing part 2. Howard's response was, as Erica had somewhat anticipated, a refusal. This when Erica and the other members of the Technological Union began making preparations to win Vern over. It didn't occur to tore any chance of unity to shreds. Vern Company announced its independent development of the next generation of combat orbits, meaning that while up till then they had been co-developing in conjunction the Epstein Foundation, Vern removed the Epstein Foundation from its system and began development on their own. You could tell this is a villainy at work if they don't want to work with, like, other corporations. Ever since the Orbital Revolution, Epstein had lent its expertise to any country that had wished it. The Epstein Foundation had been foundational to the development of all combat orbits, being considered the leading organization of the technology up until this point. For example, before the Great War, they worked alongside with the Rhineford Group to develop the Arcus and the Arcus II, never being separated from the project. For that reason, that's such an unprecedented announcement that rocked the entire technological world. Naturally, the Epstein Foundation had been completely removed from the project without their consent and was greatly displeased. It was a situation that deeply concerned the rights of the company while threatening their long-standing position as a hegemon of the industry. Another fruitless attempt at negotiating, it seemed that things would be coming to a head-on in a large-scale international lawsuit. However, looking at where things stand now, I honestly think Vern has the upper hand going to the trial. It had been announced that this 6th-generation combat ornament would be vastly different from an existing Ramda unit, thus constituting a new technological standard. What the 6th gen? Sound like every facet of the orbit will incorporate some sort of unique feature or technology. And we rumored to have some features that won't be known to the public. Really interested in those, but what are they thinking proceeding in such territory without the Foundation? I guess Vern is pouring all their resources into arms development at the behest of the Republic's government, but damn, it's the new Calvard president at work now. It's likely that they're planning some sort of large-scale company overhaul. On the surface, they're claiming that they're actually scaling back their military, but there's no doubt it's merely a cover to replace existing resources with much stronger ones. Following the Great War, the Empire was forced to, as per terms of the peace treaty, reduce their military to around the size of the Republic's. Damn it! Damn, you want to even out with Calvard? I feel like this is like they're gonna break that treaty. But anyways, however, given those circumstances, if the Republic were to hypothetically undergo a large-scale weapons upgrade, the balance of power would be tilted once more. There are quite a few interesting pieces on moving the shadows. I'd rather like to go to Vern's home city and ascertain the situation with my own eyes. And there's still no info coming out about Professor Hamilton, I'm assuming. Sounds like he's working on his research in Eastern Zemuria, but each time Grandpa and Mom try to contact him, they get nothing in response. But communications networks likely still have been established where he is. Nothing we can do about that. No, if he's anywhere near as smart as the rest of the 3 disciples, it'd be rather relieving to get his help. It sure would. Lately, we've been hearing some pretty disturbing rumors coming out of these private military companies. I wonder if things would be still turning out like this had Hamilton remained for an advisor for the Vern Company. The topic had slowly started to bring down Tito's and Tita's spirits. Past year, Western Jumir had more experienced stability and felt some time at enjoying some peace and prosperity. But one couldn't shake the feeling that this peace had been built on a foundation of thin ice. Many number of concerns began to rise, especially in the rapidly evolving field of technology. No matter how much we brood over this, nothing will change. For now, we just need to do all we can from our present positions. That's why I'm here in the Republic, and that's why you're giving it all over there. Right now we have a mountain of problems to sort through, but I don't think there's any reason to be overly pessimistic, am I wrong? Ren. Hehehe. No, you're right. Thanks. I continued to chat late into the night to the point where neither even knows until it had already passed midnight. It's already this late. I should get going. See you later, Ren. Yes, have a good night, Tita. Yep. Have a good night. That moment seeing that Tita had suddenly remembered something, just called out to Ren before she could end our communications. Yeah, before we met, a big sis told me to ask you if you were doing well in school or not. Make sure to contact Estelle and the others regularly, yet they're still worried about me. And for a moment, remembered her encounter with Ronald after class, but it was the sight of a minor incident and waved to the side. I'm doing splendidly. There's nothing to worry about. Got it. She also told me to tell you, if you're ever getting bullied at school, let us know. We'll rush right over. That is so. She's so overprotective. She should know there's no need. Time to bring some ultra-violence into this Ronald guy. It's not that, I think she said something like, I'll be worried for the life of a bully. Faced the door with shock, Ren was at a loss for words. Tita couldn't help but laugh at seeing her friend make such a face. Hee. That really is the sort of thing she would be worried about. That's rather rude, don't you think? You mean if something like that were to happen, I wouldn't do anything too terrible? Not quite the same as I was as a child. Back then you would have... I'm a young lady now, Tita. It's better to handle most situations with dignity and forgiveness. Additionally, I'm aiming to lay low as possible at the school. I don't really know how it's possible for you to lay low, Ren. Anyways, I really should be get going now. Oh, yeah, if you happen to run across Zin, tell me y'all miss him. Don't tell me Zin is in Calvard. Poggers. Yes, I plan to pay him a visit once things have calmed down on my end. He's done so much for us. I'd like to quite see him once more. Once more, they fall into a long conversation, and unintentionally, finally, sometime after the day had already switched, they finally hung up and ended their little girls' chat. The following day, in Aramis's high school main schoolhouse. Sorry, my voice is hurting. I'm just drinking water. During my lunch break, Ren decided to leave the classroom, began down the stairs. However, she felt something close behind her and instantly moved aside. It was a fellow student, a girl who came to view. Got her across her face, the same shock and fearful expression that one wears when they feel themselves to lose their balance and their feet began to slip. She passed right where Ren had been, but her momentum continued to drag her down. If no one stopped her, she ended up falling down the stairs. Ren immediately reached out to grab the girl's hand, pulling her towards her. The girl who had been tumbling came to a stop, supported by Ren's hand, which was outstretched in a position unlike that of a ballroom dancer's. A handful of nearby students read saw these events unfold, couldn't help but let out a sigh of admiration. Seeing the girl was still out of it, Ren called out gently, "Is everything alright? Are you injured?" Suddenly realizing what had happened, the girl quickly stood up upright and responded with Ren's display of sympathy, her face growing slightly bit red. "Yes. Seems I'm unscathed. You're bright from the next class over, yes? You really saved me there. I can't thank you enough." "It's nothing at all. That said, I get this feeling you're in a hurry on the top of the stairs. Is something the matter?" The girl knitted her eyebrows and thought of the question. "Oh, I wasn't really. That's not it. It's just suddenly felt like someone had pushed me from behind." No, I'm overthinking things. Probably just bump into each other as we pass by." Thinking Ren once more, the girl departed. However, Ren couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Just a coincidence, huh? No. If I hadn't made it in time, she would have fallen down the stairs and been seriously injured. Though perhaps it's possible that I was their target from the beginning. If that's the case, it's hard to see that she had solid ground for her suspicions, but she could certainly feel something was amiss at that time. Sorry. She had grown used to the feeling of having a malicious gaze directly at her from afar. It would take much shorter time than she anticipated for a basis conjecture to become the certain truth. Following day, Ren returned to the classroom from her physical education with her classmates. However, as she began to prepare for her next class, she noticed something strange. It was for a student, a rather dire situation. Lou had been smarter over the sides of all of her textbooks. Obviously, an impairment made the books unable to open properly. This was a clear demonstration of intentional harassment. On top of that, it was clear who the responsible party was. She could hear Ronald Griffin, who she rejected just 2 days prior, standing with a grinning with her entourage not far away. They all laughed at her as they watched her misfortune unfold. He's not even making an attempt to hide it. No, it's not even that. He wants me to know. It's a way to intimidate me. Of course, it was now certain that the previous day's incident at the stairway had been their doing as well. Her motives, likewise, were easy to understand. So as long as Ren refused to join his faction, he being a standout student was a threat to his electric campaign. In order to secure his odds of victory, he attempted to embarrass her until she yielded to his demands. It didn't matter to him that Ren had no intention of running in that election. Having taken a moment to examine the textbook, Ren took a slightly doubtful expression. "I should be able to fix it up with ease, but that will take some time." So the bell rang and class began. Though for our class, Ren left the textbook on her desk and didn't make any further attempts to open it. Seeing as much, the teacher was displeased. She called on Ren to speak as to make an example of her. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph." Ronald's friends let out a derisive chuckle. Surely they were imagining this coming scene of a teacher harshly scolding her. However, reality didn't play out as they quite hoped. The slightest amount of panic began reading aloud, line for line, word for word, just as written in the textbook. Yet her textbook remained closed, and there was no way she was looking at another student's nunny. Huh? She could see through the text. She knows the words. "Miss Bright, have you memorized the entire text?" The homeroom teacher was shocked. "I've been preparing the text well in advance. Isn't such diligence natural for a student of Aramis?" Both the teachers and other students couldn't help but gasp in both surprise and admiration at Ren's perfect response. Ronald's cohorts, on the other hand, ground their teeth bitterly at this development. On the next day, Ren was en route to school. Ren passed through the front gate. I was about to enter the school building when a crowd of students. She noticed the pungent odor drifting from above. She looked up to find the source. Just as she did, part of the railing around the school's roof broke off and began to fall down right on top of her. Seeing this, surrounding students began to scream in terror. He could avoid it with ease, but the piece of the railing that was crashing down at them was more than 2 arcs long. He would suddenly end up injuring a member of the surrounding students. Assessing the situation, he reached out for a combat orb, which kept hitting her school bag. Air Strike. A short resuscitation of the art's name, a spear of wind appeared before Ren and went flying upwards. Ren had toned down the strength of the orbital art so that it was enough to offset the railing's momentum and without sending it flying. With small hope that he was able to catch it with ease. The stench. This really wasn't some random accident. It was the unmistakable smell of a plant-like monster's bodily fluids. Their fluids are capable of corroding metal as the damage were natural, and thus can be used as a dissolving agent in some situations. In other words, this was an intentional attack disguised as a natural occurrence. Given that Ren was the target, the culprit's objective was obvious. That same malicious glare carrying Ren from the shadows likewise served to prove this theory. However, that glare wasn't intentional, she was deceiving. Whoa, that was amazing. Did you just see that? Ren, how talented are you? Ren was busy lost in thought. A swell of cheers formed around her. Just like an artist having completely made her performance, Ren gave an elegant courtesy to her spectators. Drinking more water. Harassment didn't stop there. Ren continued to evade each and every onslaught with grace, guarding more and more attention with each incident. This state of affairs carried on for several days until one day, Ronald, fed up with how things were going, finally called Ren behind the schoolhouse. He and an entourage were all present. He wore a frustrated expression, completely different to polite, composed demeanor he expressed a few days prior. I think I skipped a bit of text, but sure, we'll get to this part. You do not want to do that. You do not want to do that. Let me give it to you straight, Redbright. You're in my way. You had no will to uphold any pretenses, any normal, genuine demeanor having completely vanished? My. It's rather regrettable to hear that from my own classmate. Don't play dumb with me. I poured so much time and mirror to building up my influence in this school. Yet, you think you could just stroll in here and show me up? Of all times, it's painfully obvious that you're trying to get in the way of my ambitions. Ren kept her cool in the face of Ronald's obnoxious fury. I suppose you have only yourself to blame for that. It was only because Ronald had tried to cause her so much grief that Ren had ended up standing out so much. This fact pointing out to him, Ronald clicked his tongue in regret. It's beside the point. I won't tolerate your presence anyway. I'd like you to exit the stage for a while. And what is that supposed to mean? It's be finally gained the upper hand around to smirk once more. Oh, nothing in particular. Just don't come to school on election day. That's all I want. And if I were to refuse, with a wave of Ronald's hand, his entourage circle around Ren. They are all well built. Their menacing gazes like daggers carving into her. Fortunately, I don't think that refusing is really on the table. If you really wanted to, then well, I think we just have to make you stay home. If to try to point home, Ronald's friends cracked their knuckles. My goodness, we're at school, aren't we? Isn't it really proper to do something like this? Ren spoke in an astonished manner, but Ronald took her to be panicking and spoke pleasantly. Yeah, just who would be snooping around behind the schoolhouse? Even if someone did happen to see, I'm sure my father could use his connections to deal with them. Besides, I'm sure they much prefer pretend they see nothing. Everyone in this school knows how things stand, except for you, apparently. Ren left on side of side, seeing as an obnoxious smirk. It seems this boy's need of a little discipline. Though I did promise Tita earlier that I wouldn't be too showy with it. Suppose it's only my choice now. Let's just think of it as an opportune moment. Time to get the scythe, boys. Oblivious to what Ren was thinking, Ronald continued his speech. Now do as I say, Ren, bright. Ronald's friend began closing closer to her, ready to hold her down. Be careful not to go overboard. But I'll make sure you suffer just a tiny bit. If it'll get you to reflect on your actions, I'm sure Estelle won't mind too much. It was just as Ren determined her course action that a voice called out. Stop it, please! The young woman's voice calmed by the schoolboy, and of course the person they were yelling at wasn't Ren, but Ronald and his friends. Wait, aren't you? Ronald's frustration appeared once more. The girl had a twinge of fear in her voice, but she stood regardless. So that's what she looks like. Interesting. I just happened to be passing by, but I heard a bit of your conversation. This is wrong. Please stop and reconsider. Gil stepped toward Ronald as she spoke, apparently to get between him and Ren. Stepping out from the shadow of the schoolhouse, her hair gleamed softly in the afternoon sunlight. Ren had seen this girl before. She was the first-year student and lived in the dorm room next to hers. They greeted each other when passing the hall, but they weren't specifically close. She seemed to be a quiet, reserved girl from a good family, so Ren was surprised by the strong will she displayed trying to help her. Ron was equally as surprised. Clearly, he thought Ren was the only student who dared stand against him. Despite his shock, he looked the blonde girl standing his way up and down. He made a cruel smile. So she's blonde. Wait a second. I know I'm speculating things, but wait, I'll just have to see after this. Huh? Oh, I see. So I'm wrong, am I? By your looks of a first year? Perhaps you need a little lesson before bright. Think a bit more careful what the society deems right and wrong. At Ronald's words, Doug's rushed to surround the brown girl. The girl began slightly quaking fear, looming threat, as she stood her ground nonetheless. Knock it off at once. Ren demanded of them. I'll do what you want, so cease this immediately. Miss Bright. Heh, perfect. The girl was surprised by Ren's confession, but Ronald gave a content smile. I won't come to school for a few days. Is that good enough? Miss Bright, please don't. Being exchange student is tougher than I expected. It's been quite exhausting. I honestly could use a break myself. I explained to the girl who had come to help her, hoping to calm her down. Ronald, on the other hand, was ecstatic at his victory. So you'll finally learn your place, Ren Bright. Works for me. If you just behave yourself for a few days, my job will become much easier. Hell, I even looked at little first year's transgressions. Saying as much, Ronald turned to his entourage in high spirits. I'll see you around, Bright. By the next time we meet, the school will already belong to me. Even a pair with those words, Ronald and his gang departed. He remained behind the school building, and the young girl looking over Ren with concern. I'm doing fine. I appreciate your consideration. Saying as much, Ren gave the kind girl a smile. Following name Ren, Bright fell ill and began a hiatus from school. A few days later, the whole student body gathered in the auditorium. It was finally time for the Aramis High School Student Council election. Given Aramis' focus on student autonomy, the Student Council had a great deal of power. They were even charged in organizing certain events, such as the Academic Festival, who had just been held in the capital every spring. While they wielded great power over many operations, they were in turn held responsible and evaluated for their performance. Such evaluations even had their value after graduation. It was for this reason that many students had high hopes with this prestigious position. That's what made this year such an anomaly. For some reason, the rival candidates had dropped out one by one, so only Ronald and his clique remained. Heh, does it not look good if I win by a vote of confidence? Ronald and his friends chuckled quietly as they related the results. The other candidates didn't seem to attempt a campaign. Safe to say that Ronald's victory was already secured. Time for Ronald's campaign speech. He stood in a tall, gentlemanly manner, affecting his voice with the same proud style of speech his father would use. Actual content with thought up was well written, and top that was all around a solid performance. Every now and then a boast would slip out. That was little concern given that his opponents didn't even have proper speeches. Hello there everyone, please have a look at the screen. A few years prior, a large screen installed in the podium Ronald was using. Often used for lectures, even occasional recreation moving screening. One could argue that the reason that school that even had such a screen because of the Calvard's development in Orbital Films. Fucking Orbital Films. What can Calvard not do? Past year's candidates used this screen to provide visual aid to their speeches, displaying relevant pictures. This year, however, Ronald intended to take things a step further. Utilizing the screen, he displayed a promotional video. It seemed like to be made of some independent student, but one that seemed to be made of some large film company. It must have cost a great deal of mirror. had been refreshing me. It was nearly perfect. Lecture had probably already been won before Ronald even stepped on stage. With this video there could be no longer any doubt. It was worthy of the elite trajectory that Ronald envisioned for himself. He needed as much as heart. Ronald pressed play. Again, fan helped me with opening music, which Ronald's visage appeared on screen and began speaking. How much do you want? Come on, let me your support. You can get all the merit you want. Huh? Renne being partook was completely different from the round Ronald had prepared. He was recording of himself of just a few days prior about paying off a rival candidate. With Ronald shocked into inaction, the video advanced to the next scene. Now, if you don't want something bad to happen, just drop out of the election, won't you? Or would you prefer a hospital bed in your dorm bed? Oh shit. Once again, he was shocked to see himself on screen this time. He threatened the opponent with violence. You've been exposed, Ronald. Ronald understood what had happened, so he had replaced the film he prepared. To nobody's surprise, an uproar among the students around trying to cover it up. No, this is complete nonsense. Clearly there's something wrong. Someone's trying to slander me. Is it waiting for the exact words? The girl's voice echoed from the auditorium's entrance. It's rather unfortunate, but what you see before you is the absolute truth. The voice just as clear as confident as it was enchanting. The girl with flowing violent hair slowly advanced from the entrance toward the podium, speaking as she approached. What the 200 IQ Renne? "200 IQ, what the?" Bribing voters, threatening violence against your opponents, and finally bullying and attempting to injure other students. Ronald Griffin, your sins are laid bare. Before you knew it, the girl had come up to the podium and now stood face to face with him. All Sue's eyes were glued to the scene as if Renne was dignifying the main protagonist. Finally making her entrance on stage. Renne Bright, won't you stop getting in my way? Ronald let out a cry of muffled rage. Renne on the other making her debut into the school following many days of absence, responded with grace. Anyone's getting in anyone's way. I believe that would be you, Ronald. You're shamelessly disgrace this moment's election with countless acts of misconduct. Saying this, Renne turned to not turn Ronald but to the students, gesturing for them to all watch his crimes unfold on screen. Sometimes the student would frown, at other points they sympathetic expression. Some scenes they would go completely silent, and in the end, all left one collective emotion: rage. All but at Ronald. We've only been classmates for a short while, but it still pains me to say this as a fellow student. Yet regardless of my own feelings, it must be said. Ronald Griffin, you are not fit to be student council. No, beyond that, you're not fit to have any place in the honorable, prestigious history of our great Aramis High School. Renne's speech was but the first in a barrage of anger and blame towards Ronald. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Stop smearing the good name of our school. I'll never forgive a guy like you. It wasn't thanks to Renne's accusation that the students are oblivious to how Ronald conducts himself every day. Out of fear for his father's authority and connection, I've been able to put a stop to him. All that pent-up anger spilled for him. During that hail of cheers, Ronald go over to his entourage for it, yet none of them would meet his gaze. That moment struck Ronald that the castle he had spent long building for himself was made of sand. With his eyes filled with hatred and his heart filled with despair, Ronald rushed away from the podium. Renne cheered out for the sight of him fleeing, flustered and afraid out of the auditorium. It was until that evening that Renne, having stayed late to great deal with this mess caused by the election, finally left the school grounds. She walked part of the way to the dormitory and took a detour down to an unfamiliar road. She arrived at a quiet park. I assume here is fine. There's no one to get in our way, so you can come on out. At Renne's words, Ronald, who Renne had been since his escape earlier that night, appeared with a dozen men backing him up. The men weren't the same entourage of students that followed Ronald around. Those men were gaudy clothes and vicious expressions. They clearly weren't in any polite line of work, most likely were some sort of low-tiered organized crime group. Well, Griffin, you have quite a few shady friends, don't you? I suppose it's time to begin the party. Here's the last time you ever look at me with that damn smug expression, Renne Bright. My aspirations to become an elite politician, my bright future. You taking it all away from me. What the hell am I supposed to say to my father? Maybe apologize? I don't really know, Griffin. Wouldn't it be best if you clean up your own act before you're going to him? Hearing Ren's unshaken tone, Ronald's entire block short with rage as he shouted, I'll never forgive you! You hear me? I'm tired of keeping up your appearance! You stupid bitch! I don't care what happens to you! I can clean it all up later! Do whatever the hell you want to her! Ronald's command men all started rushing in a few moments later, couldn't believe their own eyes. The Angel of Slaughter. Yep. Never mess with Enforcer number 15, boys. Ronald couldn't comprehend what just happened. Sure, he had seen it, but his brain couldn't process it. The moment he issued his command, the petite girl in front of him suddenly brought out a massive golden sight, seemingly out of nowhere. As if that wasn't strangely enough, what followed after made it feel like he had been dreaming. It was like a cat playing toy with a mouse that couldn't escape. Except the cat was a small girl with the scythe. The mice, the dozen grown men that were left scattered around. Sorry guys, I was about to sneeze. First, the men were confident as he moved in surrounded, but they quickly came to realize the insurmountable difference in ability when, in a single motion, Ren's sight cut down half of their friends in less than 10 seconds flat. One shot. It could hardly be even considered a fight. The rats scrambled and ran in fear as the kittens chased them around with joy. At times, she pretended to let them escape, allowing them for a brief moment of relief before crushing it all underfoot by instantly catching up once more. They repeat this process over and over until the mouse would get too exhausted to keep running around and join the others fainting on the ground. One by one, the men fell until it was only Ren and Ronald left standing. What the fuck? How did you? This isn't real. Did you not know who Ren Bright is? Jeez. Ron couldn't accept the rowdy before his eye. Ran like a child who still wanted to play more, slowly approached him. Those men were too inexperienced. They were no fun to play at all. Please stay calm. I haven't slaughtered them all quite yet. Ren looked away from the man, directing attention towards Ronald. Now then, Griffin, why don't we play together for a bit? Words sent chills down Ronald's spine and his eyes. Ren had become nothing more than a horrific monster with a girl's skin. Don't get anywhere near me. Daddy's a congressman, you know? If you do anything to me, don't think he'll ever forgive you. Hearing this, Ren looked down at Ronald with pity in her eyes and tossed him a magazine. Here, why don't you read today's gossip column? Huh? Ron had no clue what she meant, but the moment she looked at the front cover, turned deathly pale. Headline: Congressman Griffin involved in massive bribery scandal, possibly connection to criminal organizations, adorned the front cover bold letters. But get a special report gathering all manner of evidence. It would seem that the CID's already decided the results of their investigation. I wonder he will still be in Congress by the end of the day tomorrow. My condolences. I was so shocked he couldn't form words of it, but Ren had no intention of letting him off just now. But let's not go on and on about your father. How about we have some fun together? Just the two of us. Holding your scythe to the side, Ren approached Ronald with a sadistic grin. He tried to flee, but ended up tripping on a small stone and falling over. As if beholding his soaring inevitable approach of the Grim Reaper, Ronald looked up at Ren with tears flowing from his eyes, snot running from his nose. Please engrave this memory into your soul. This is what happens when you mess with Ren. Ren raised the sight before her head, ready to swing it, but the following moment, Ronald's light flashed before his eyes. He was shocked at what he heard. My, that just won't do. It seems I let that whole habit slip out. Ren covered her mouth with one hand, blushing ever so slightly. It seems like her excitement began acting as she did when she was a child. It wasn't feeling of a young lady, but the time Ren calmed herself down, Ronald had already passed out. Seems we're finished here. As she left the park, she heard the voice of a calm young man calling out to her. Yeah, more or less. Ren looked over to where the response had come and leaned. The tree was a tad young man standing quietly. Seemed to be watching everything in the park unfold. What? Man glanced at the park, clearly impressed. Nice work. Oh, which one? Both, of course. Your combat proficiency as Angel saw and your hacking skills as Kitty, you're both pretty impressive. Not to mention, how easily you would uncover the wrongdoings of a big-name congressman like that. However, Renne didn't boast over her own talents. That's because the orbit network is still so insecure. Perhaps that can't be helped since it was just now beginning to experience popular use, but governments and mega corporations really should be more careful. You can make it sound like you have experience with their security? Tee-hee, I wonder. Renne faced back towards the young man with a smile. I must say I'm impressed with you. You managed to pin down the perfect evidence and write such a tremendous article in such a short time. So is he like a journalist? I'm pleased that Miss Lin decided to introduce us. Huh? Is it that bracer, Lin? I'm a pro reporter, and that's just my job, so, like, he's related to, like, Linda Bracer? This young man's name was Dingo Brad. He worked as a writer for the Gossip magazine. He was a talented journalist getting mixed in all sorts of dangerous situations to find a good scoop. On top of that, his info network was top-notch. Meeting through their mutual friend Grace, Renne and Dingo had struck a deal a few days earlier. So a friend of Grace. Makes sense. Oh, never mind. So it's Grace Lin. I was thinking not the other Lin, the bracer. Never mind. For to collect evidence on Ronald's crimes at school, while Renne had put her hacking talents to collecting evidence on his father's crimes as a politician. Thanks to the result of their partners snooping, both parties were able to achieve the outcome they were looking for. Did get help from some friends though, but they all whined like, "Buh, it's such a pain to dig up dirt after some congressman's lazy son, buh." But in the end, the info they grabbed paid off. Oh, I suppose they expect of a journalist to have so many friends to call on. I explained the feeling she had become someone who was moving in the shadows besides Dingo, while Renne, resting, thinking about her hunch, she continued the conversation. At any rate, it seems like you managed to get the article into the magazine without any interference. Well, Congressman Griffin ain't exactly the current administration's favorite dude. Probably let me put the story out since they're doing. It doesn't get away with the president's faction, make it look like the CID. Looks like they're doing something good for once. I see. If that old title user is in charge of the case, then everything should be fine. Like, well, I suppose I'm a discontent with the fact that she was probably using me indirectly, but I'll allow it to pass the time. Just Dingo raised a question. Gotta say, little miss, I'm still a bit simple. Exactly what do you want out of this whole thing? Were you really interested in that boy? You'll cast a silent glance at Ronald, still lying unconscious at the park. Renne, however, simply shrugged. No, not really. In truth, I hadn't intended for things to come this far. I was going to teach him a lesson without getting directly involved, but at that moment, Renne remembered the young girl who run to her aid. If that boy had become a student council president, it would have been terrible for my cute little underclassman. She said as much with a refined smile. Just as Renne predicted, Congressman Griffin resigned on suspicions of fraud. Ronald likewise dropped out of Aramis of his own accord. Faction as once done, being pleased throughout the school naturally dissipated, and Aramis High School was at peace at once more. However, one thing didn't go quite as Renne as expected. President. Here's the paper for the next budget. You don't mean the new president, Calvard president. Young blonde girl, the new general affairs manager, handed a stack of papers over to the newly spotty president of Aramis High School. Oh, never mind. Forget what I said before. Renne bright, she skimmed over the documents. On the day of the election, most candidates dropped out following Ronald's flight from the auditorium. Regardless of what was said, 70% were deemed invalid. That's because each one of them had written the name of the candidate who wasn't even in the running. The school tried to avoid interfering with the school affairs, but due to their academic philosophy of the student freedom, but now feared a massive outcry of displeasure given their failure to deal with Ronald. Teachers searching for a way to please the student ministry moved to hold negotiations with Renne. With all their urgency, he had no choice but to accept the role. Student council work was easy enough for Renne to manage, though it was a big departure from her initial plans of remaining graceful yet humble, avoiding standing out. Although there's nothing I could do about it. I've heard from Tita that somehow I ended up at the same student council somehow ended up as student council president at the Doris Branch campus. I wonder if he felt the same. I'm guessing she's talking about Ash. Fucking Muse, too, as the vice president. What's done is I might as well put this position to good use. Warm sunlight filtered the student council room as the blonde-haired girl and her two friends struggled to figure out all sorts of familiar tasks. Renne sat there and listening to her occasional complaints and friendly small talk, thinking to herself. Constant innovation fears the world of technology, the future moves up to society, something brewing would soon envelop the nation of Calvard. There's no shortage of worries to be had. For now, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to just sit by and enjoy her school life. Well then everyone, let's wrap up today's work quickly so we can go and enjoy some tea. It's already passing, yet summer warms day had not yet arrived either. It was a bright, ordinary afternoon. That girl's ordinary school life end. Whew. Sorry guys, my voice is hurting so bad. Oh. Looks like we got ourselves a third story. Alright, we do got ourselves a third story. Next time, Hajimari no Kiseki. This will be the last commentary video that I'll ever do for this playthrough. So, next time, we're gonna be looking at this final future story. What's it called? Let me Google translate this. I can look at the Zerofield translation, but I want to just Google translate what it actually is. And the maiden continues to go through the sword. Okay. I'll see you guys all next time.